Welcome to another episode of Escaping the Maze with me, Roberta Ripley. And today I'm glad to have Brother Theodore Jackson with us again. Most people know my guest as Unplugem, based on his YouTube channel handle. And good morning, Brother Theo.
Good morning. God morning. God blessed morning to all who are listening, and to you also, Sister Roberta.
All right, thank you. And, I was following you, and you actually were doing a fast. So you did a 7-day fast. And what was that the fast all about? And do you know how many people actually followed you on that fast?
Well, I actually had suggested that, folks did not have to actually respond or write in the comment section how they were going to operate during the fast. I gave the general instructions and then called for the troops to move out, because it was really a response to what appeared to be going on in the demonic realm, just from looking at different events that were slated for September, and especially during the time of September 21st to the 28th, during the papal visit. And I knew that what I was hearing from the Lord was that the body of Christ needed to sharpen up. And whenever you're trying to sharpen up, get more clarity from the Lord, or looking for breakthroughs is, a common thing people will say. But the number one thing, and I guess the way that I could verbalize it best is, for clarity, to be able to get clarity, because there was so many predictions about what was going to happen. The meteor was going to strike, the rapture was going to happen, the Pope was going to, So I really was looking for clarity myself, just as a leader. And so, I thought to myself, well, surely the people who are somewhat anxious about what's going to happen also need some clarity too from the Holy Ghost. And so that was the reason for the call for the fast, because of the high energy time going out of so-called Virgo and into so-called Libra, which is what the 21st of September was. And that first week, I saw the occult meaning in that, that first week after any zodiac cusp is a high energy week, because you have the energy, quote unquote, of the previous sign or spirit leaving out, and then you have the full-fledged energy of the present spirit, or the present sign that they're coming in. Within that first week, those energies, both of those energies can be used. And from a warlock or witch's perspective, which we know that's what our enemies are really, they would see that as a time, or as a key or opportune time to do some things. And so, I did expect, I guess, more physical manifestations of their chaos than we were able to see with our physical eyes. However, the enemy does everything in the spirit realm first. He's not a creator. He's only a copy, and he's copying after the way of the Father, which, of course, he learned when he was among the Father's army. And so he takes that same philosophy to his military. Do everything in the spirit realm first. First, you prepare the way by the spirit realm. Then you see the physical manifestations of that afterward. First is mental and spiritual preparation. Then afterward, you see physical preparation. That could be in athletics or any number of things. First comes the mind and the spirit, preparing there. Then you will see the physical manifestation. So that's really what we saw. We saw them preparing in mind and spirit by rituals, by drawing off the fear energy that was produced by a lot of YouTubers, some of them well-intended and some not, who just didn't really realize how to rightly divide the Word of God and look at Revelation the proper way. And so, that was the real reason for the fast, was that high energy time, which did not, I feel, manifest the physical things people were looking for. But I'm sure that the spirit realm has been stirred up like never before.
So do you think we'll see a physical manifestation of that later on, or that they're done with that period and they're off onto something else?
Well, that's the way of nature and the universal law will dictate that what was done in the spirit will manifest in the physical.
Okay.
So there will be this physical manifestation. Now, I'm looking for 2016 to be the year of physical manifestation. Where the wilder things that some people have predicted that we may see will begin to be seen, such as things with Project Bluebeam or the alien deception, however they take that to the next level. This was a preparation year, okay, like the practice before the game, before the big game. And much of what was done this year, including the Pope coming here and meeting with the devils here, it was a preparatory thing, you know. It's one boss coming to meet with other bosses because now it's time for us to come together and make this big move. And so, you know, I think it was a bad call for a lot of folks to say, well, you know, when he comes, it's a wrap. You know, it's going to be destruction. He's going to come and calm the people down from the destruction. I've always looked at what if the enemy does their thing so methodically and with a chess master's mind, to where that didn't make any sense to me. You know, certain things had to occur, you know, in order for them to fulfill revelations the way that they desired to. And those things had not occurred yet. And, you know, people talking about a meteor hitting. Well, first has to come the intense neo-persecution of Christians. And that had not happened. You know, we see little lightweight things happening. We see things happening in other parts of the world, such as the Christian persecutions in the Middle East and in Africa and in China. But this is Babylon. And so what happens here shapes the world. What happens in China does not shape the world. What happens in the Middle East does not shape the world per se.
What about
America?
Europe? What about Europe with the migration of a lot of the people from African and Middle Eastern countries? Some people were saying that was the beginning. One person, I say one YouTuber I listened to, and his take on it was that some people were saying that it was a Trojan horse. I'm trying to remember her name. This YouTuber that I listened to, I don't think it's Fuentes. I can't remember her name, but she was saying that it was perhaps a Trojan horse, that there were a lot of Islamic radicals coming over with a lot of some of the Middle Eastern immigrants. And then another person was saying that, well, actually, these are a lot of people who are true Muslims, who are not a part of the radicalists, and Christians. And the claim that one of the YouTubers was making was that some of the Christians and even some of the true Muslims, the Muslims who are not practicing radicalism, are going to be put in concentration camps in Europe. And that they're saying, so these Christians are going to be persecuted, but you don't even think Europe is a necessary part of it. It has to happen in America, the persecution of Christians.
For it to be what when people say things are at an apocalyptic level, for it to be what we see in Revelations, then America has to be the key player. And but this is what's happening. We're seeing the build-up. Europe is the father, and America is the son. And so, yes, we're going to see it first in all the other nations, and then in the father. But when the son, when this great Satan, when this great Babylon does its obvious Christian persecution, after for so many centuries perpetrating to be a Christian land, once that veil is totally dropped and that guise is totally discarded, and then the true nature of this nation, which was set up unlike any other, unlike Europe, unlike any other, this was set up, masonically set up to be a nation for satanic worship to flourish. Once it's established here, then that's what Revelations is talking about. Then it's official, basically. Once America said, hey, gay marriage, gay is okay, then the world followed suit. You see, America, this is the world leader. They call Obama the leader of the free world. So although Europe, not taking away from Europe's hand in dirt and its prominence in that, but just looking at the importance of the baby. You know, the baby boy is America. The real whore of Babylon is America. Okay, no one is fornicating with all of the other nations, quote unquote, like America. And so, you know, and that's not a Americentric point of view. You know, I'm not speaking from that perspective. I'm looking at how we influence the music, we influence pop culture, we influence everything devilish that the rest of the world does. They generally learn from America. And so that would be why I would really have to see it going on here in the States. I mean, in a way that would seem nightmarish.
Yes, so Kim Davis is not even the tipping point, what she's been going through. Kim Davis, the clerk, the Kentucky county clerk. You've heard of her? Okay.
Yes,
yeah. So she's not even, you wouldn't even think she's the tipping point. Maybe she's just, you know, she's just one of many people in the beginning that we're just going to see, but she's not a tipping point of any sort, you think?
She like the whole Caitlyn fiasco, like the legalization of gay marriage, period. This is the beginning of that phase, the beginning of the sorrow of the Christian persecution. You know, like the Bible describes, I like how the Messiah uses the analogy of a birth, because there are stages in a birth. You know, the contractions of the birth pains before the actual labor. Mm-hmm. And so we're seeing the beginnings of sorrows. We're seeing the beginnings of the labor. We're seeing the start of it, okay, which is used to give the prophets and the prophetesses inkling, you know, about what's going on, you know, or rather some evidence as the Holy Spirit gives them inkling and utterance. They'll be able to look and see evidence of the things to come. Mm-hmm. Okay, you know, God surely would not do anything until he first reveals it unto his prophets. And so it's a way to, you know, like, you know, you and I, we can watch the news and we can see the county clerk's trials and tribulations. Mm-hmm. And then we can look and we can see what's going on in other places in the world and in the earth concerning those who do not follow the Luciferian way. And we can see certain things on the horizon to come based on that. You know, the incremental way that the enemy likes to work. Although he's stepping on the gas a lot more these days, he still does things in increments. So that was a her news story having some prominence, and the fervor and those who were fighting for her. It was more of a litmus test.
Yes, that's what I was saying.
And you know, evidence of the contractions, okay, of the birth that is to come. You know, and, you know, unfortunately in this analogy, what's to be born is a Christian persecution in America that will parallel what we see in other nations. Remember, America's whole thing is this subtle illusion, okay? In other nations, it is what it is. You see what it is, and, you know, what you see is what you get. It's dramatic. But here in America, you know, it's all based on a guise. Everything is based on aesthetics. And so, you know, as life gets realer, aesthetic things have less and less of a place and priority, and really they begin to fall away, and you begin to see what's really the foundation, what's really behind certain things. And that's what's happening to America in general. I'm sorry.
And because I always find one of the huge lies about America is that it's a Christian nation. Wasn't established by Christians. I mean, I don't care if the Puritans came here, however they were. I mean, they weren't, how did someone once put it? Someone was once describing the coming, how when Europeans came here, they were brought here by the very Masonic people who had ruined or were ruining or ruling Europe. And they used them almost like, how would you say, they were bodies. They needed to run a bunch of Europeans out. You know, whether they settled them there as prisoners like they did in Australia, or they let them come as colonists thinking they were going to be free because they needed bodies here. They needed to complete that, what we call now a working, by getting what do you want to call them, Edomites? And I heard someone actually say that the Masonic people would refer to them as Edomites. Push them there so they could start that working here in America. So it was established by Masons. The founding fathers were Masons. So the illusion is that this is a Christian country in the first place. Mm-hmm. Even
That's
though
right.
the average citizen, like say, for example, you go to Bible Belts, like in Kentucky where Kim Davis is, their
Right.
constitution, because most states use biblical Hebrewic law, and the definition of marriage, being between a man and a woman, for those reasons. I was reading
Right.
up on this case in regards to what the Supreme Court, the decision they made. The Supreme Court does not make law. Most people forget basic civics. I remember my civics teacher, and we did go down breaking down the three branches of government. That the executive branch, the judicial branch, and obviously the legislative branch. The Congress can make a law, and every state has their own law based on the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment allows states to make specific laws unique to them. It does allow that. The Supreme Court can make a decision. Now, they decided to redefine marriage, and they used DOMA.
The Defense of Marriage Act.
Yeah, the Defense of Marriage Act. Thank you. The Defense of Marriage Act. All these battles that were being fought and brought to the Supreme Court, or in some legal battles, all had to do with property rights and inheritances. And then because you were, I guess, two males or two females, there was issues because you weren't really married. They tried to break it down that's how they were trying to break down this whole idea of definition of marriage. And that's how they were trying to weasel their way into saying that we're no longer going to consider it. The Supreme Court decided to ignore the foundations of marriage. Our legal system is based on Judeo-Christian, I guess you call it religion or theology, or the basis or God's law. And now the Supreme Court wants to redefine it. So they want to take God's law and replace it with man's law. And that is and they can't really, and even based on our Constitution, they don't have a right to do that, because Kentucky still looks at marriage very specifically as being between a man and a woman. So Kim Davis technically is not breaking the law based on her state's constitution. So still, I can see how you say they're trying to test the waters, trying to break it down until, I don't know if all 50 states are ever going to agree to that. Or the Supreme Court, and it has done it a few times. The Supreme Court, based on some history I've read, has kind of slid in their decisions and kind of overruled a state's law.
Well, see, when I say test the waters, I am fully reserved to the belief that they are going forward, regardless of how people react. Okay, but perhaps even It may even be more for them than it is for us, to try to condition us. At this point, we're conditioned. This meat has been tenderized. It's ready to go on the grill, okay? But they still are into marking their success, or, seeing where they are at is an important thing to these megalomaniacs. And so, things like that, they throw it out to the public. We have to kind of gauge public opinion, so I guess they know how hard or soft to carry on. But they're going to carry on, okay? Regardless of the 10th Amendment, every state in the Union will be held to this new standard, because this is the new way of the new world. Marriage has to be redefined, and the Defense of Marriage Act had to be destroyed, so that you could make way for not just gay marriage. That's lightweight jamming. Listen, come on. They, people will be marrying dogs and robots.
Oh yeah.
And I don't mean like 10 years. Okay. I mean like 10 months. So, but and that's where we're going, regardless of what public outcry is or whatever. The unfortunate thing is there is no real public outcry. People have been lulled to sleep. They've been seduced into believing that they should not say anything against Caitlyn Jenner's sex change, or against the pink-hand agenda in general. People have been lulled into sleep, brothers and sisters who would normally be proactive about seeing perpetrators, infiltrators come into organizations and play the game, and then slip away basically scot-free. We are conditioned now So they're no longer really testing the waters like as if they're going to make changes in what they're doing. They test the waters just to kind of see where they're at, for their own, I guess, for their own egomaniacal purposes, because they like to keep records of what they do and where they're at.
And what I think is a tragedy of this is that most of the religious institutions have played a huge part in this. I remember one woman, this is years ago before I actually started practicing Christianity, it might have been 15 years ago, a woman was saying that she was, struggling and trying to make it. And she said, I see all these people who are very successful who are doing all these wrong things. And she was talking in terms of entertainment business and all this. And she said, and she was kind of reticent about going to her church or some churches she'd gone to because she said it's more like about motivational speaking. And at the time, it registered with me a little bit on the surface. But they're not teaching, a lot of these churches don't have power, and they aren't really teaching people the Bible. And I thought that I'm fascinated by people who've been lifelong Christians, and someone can misquote a Bible verse or even say something out of context of the Bible, and there's no one there to challenge them. And that frustrates me because I'm learning and I'm trying to read. And when someone says something to me, whether they're an atheist or a person who doesn't believe in biblical teachings, I want to be able to say, well, this is what it means. So I'm trying to understand that. So I'm frustrated when I find certain Christians, not all, who've been Christians all their life, brought up in the church, went to church every Sunday, went Wednesdays and Tuesdays and every other day of the week. And some of them still, maybe they fell out of it, but they come back to it. And their pastors aren't really breaking down the Bible to them, or they're taking it out of context to support their prophet ministry ideologies now. And one of the things that I was looking at, remember, I was when I mentioned I was going to bring up something about the Pope, is that during the Pope's visit, we know that there's some accusations that have been made to him far worse than the fact that he was a gangster back in Argentina. So
Right.
Worse things, accusations to be made, and I'll leave off mentioning that for right now. But in regards,
Child abuse.
Okay, yes,
Right?
child abuse, child trafficking, and amongst other, not just priests but other elite. So he's been involved. Yeah, so he was involved in that, and there was even there was an article I was reading about the accusation, but she was from Norway, talking about, oh my God, it was so horrific. She was talking about how she was involved in a lot of molestation, but she wasn't specifically naming. She wasn't naming the Pope Francis, but she was talking about how she was a part of that ring. And I was looking, and all I saw was text. All I saw was text on the fact that there were young girls they were women now, claiming that as children they had been molested by him or had watched him actually sacrificing children. I wasn't going to go into that. So, and then
come on, listen, heavyweight jam.
I know. Okay, let me see if I can pull this up then. So, give me a moment. But this was having to do with. Let's see if I can get this, because I was trying to show this to some family members, and I shouldn't even. It's so hard to talk to family members sometime about this stuff. But let me pull up this article.
I understand.
Yeah,
that's why the scripture says there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. And these days and times, you will find that some of the members of in the body or in the truth of believer movement will be closer to you and more like family to you than blood. That's part of what Jesus did would happen.
I know, but it's even harder because some of these family members out. It's one thing when it's my cuz, he grown, but sometimes it's like when you're dealing with older folk, like, because they got more knowledge. They've been here 70, 80 years. I'm talking about my parents.
Right.
And it's really hard because everything you say is like, you don't know what you're talking about. It could be anything because you're still a kid to them sometimes. I mean, sometimes maybe other people have different experiences with their parents, but.
Sister Ripley, I can't tell my mama nothing. I can't tell her it's warm outside. She, coming from me, I'm still their child. So we'll never have that authority to get their ear like we would like to. But the Lord is graceful and merciful, and He'll allow for us to plant the seeds that we need to plant. Now, something I wanted to add to what you said about old Pope Francis, Papa Francisco.
Yeah, and when you get, I pulled up, I got those articles up, so I'll go over them when you're done in a minute.
Okay. Now, I believe I had seen seen some of the series of interviews that you were referring to, because I saw several testimonials from different folks This was all through the tribunal, and I forget the man who was really heading that charge, but he was slandered. It was an obvious slander job, but the media did, and it really took the wind out of the sails of that, because it was, it looked like it was having a little movement, more movement than I ever thought. Now, I'm no damn goofy goober. I thought to myself, now they have listed Queen Elizabeth and Papa Francisco as being perpetrators in these crimes. Who's going to arrest them?
No one.
So I did, from that perspective, some didn't smell right about the whole thing. I said, well, now, is this guy really serious? He has to know you're not going to cuff Papa Francisco. You're not going to cuff Pope Francis and stuff him in the car. So what is this really about? But, beyond that and aside from that, the stuff, when you looked into the stuff and the testimonies from the individual, I did actually see a woman who named him.
Oh, okay. I like to find that video. Yeah.
As a perpetrator, as a molester, as a rapist, basically.
But in the article, and I'm not sure if this is the one you're talking about, but this was, I think it was Kevin Annett of the International Tribunal. Yeah. So this article is based on today's exclusive, and this is from the website that I'm looking on. It's www.whale, spelled like the animal, WHALE.TO, and then it's /C/ eyewitnesses _testify.html. So eyewitnesses testify Pope Francis raped and killed children, sealed Vatican documents, exposed their satanic rituals. Now, we live in a culture that pretty much hates Christians. So you think that the church, the media would want to hop on this, or at least somebody, some atheist, some group of people would say, hey, look at those bad Christians. Look at what Pope whatever does. None of them have even picked it up. So that's interesting to me. So this article is based on today's exclusive with Kevin Annett of the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State on this week's litigation in Brussels Common Law Court of Justice. 5 judges and 27 jury members from 6 countries, including the USA, considered evidence on over 50,000 missing Canadian, U.S., Argentinian, and European children who were suspected victims of an international child sacrificial cult referred to as the Ninth Circle. 2 adolescent women claimed that Pope Francis raped them while participating in child sacrifices. Eyewitnesses confirmed that allegations, according to evidence presented this week at a Brussels Common Law Court of Justice. The Ninth Circle satanic child sacrifice rituals were set to take place during the springs of 2009 and 2010 in rural Holland and Belgium. Pope Francis was also a perpetrator in satanic child sacrifice rites while acting as an Argentine priest and bishop, according to records obtained from the Vatican archives. And it goes on from there. But so if anybody wants to read that article, I'll post a link of it on my website. And if I post this audio on my if I can't post it on YouTube, I'll post the link there so you can read about the survivors talking about they saw rituals described where newborn babies were being chopped into pieces on stone altars and the remains consumed by participants. The chief prosecutor said during a 1960s survivor eyewitness was forced to rape and mutilate other children and then cut their throats with ceremonial daggers. So it's pretty horrific. So
yes, indeed. But Papa Francisco, he's used to being in some horrific situations. He's not soft.
Mm-mm.
He wears a little beanie and does a little princess wave, but at the same time, he's got a history.
Oh yeah.
He's got a very gangster history.
And I thought the first pope before him looked scary. This guy's he's something else.
Now, the Pope before him, but see, this just goes to show you how the devil operates. And this is a perfect example and analogy of the devil's deception in a nutshell. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, Ratzinger, excuse me. He looked like the Emperor from the Star Wars movies. He was so blatantly, ugly, evil. This guy, but see, that's how they did. It was like the Bush to Obama change. Bush was so blatantly stupid and incompetent and irrational, blundering, foolish, and being so arrogant about it. It was so obvious. The whole world could tell. Just like with the last Pope, Pope Benedict. And then, of course, that creates a problem, reaction, solution. It's always Hegelian. The people see this guy, there's something wrong with this guy, we can see it. You give us something else. And then they slide in the real hammer. Mm-hmm. The guy that's 1,000 times worse. You can't tell me Obama's not worse behind closed doors. Mm-hmm. And you can't tell me that Pope Francis is not worse behind closed doors just by looking at the chronology of things. They're not putting weaker and weaker folks in. They're putting in people who are more and more demonically possessed and who have put in more and more demonic work. Mm-hmm. And in conjurings, that means the killing and consuming of babies. That means satanic ritual abuse. That means child abuse. And for them both to be where they are in these last days and times, in this time of peril, in the time of revelation, we at the end, these two guys are major demonic hosts.
Mm-hmm. I mean, especially when you have the Pope Pope Francis making comments, and I wish I understood Italian. I saw the translation on YouTube where he says that Christians seeking to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, meaning that you don't go through, I guess, his church or the church, is dangerous. Mm-hmm. Dangerous, mm-hmm. Really? And then he was in Philadelphia, and the mayor there's name is Mayor Michael Nutter, and mm-hmm. he was defending LGBT, rights. And Pope Francis, Pope Francis, his response to about gay rights, he said, if a person is gay and seeks God and has goodwill, who am I to judge him?
Who am I to judge?
That's right. What he said. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the Philadelphia mayor makes a comment about how in the Bible it says, judge not lest ye be judged, taking it out of context in which that phrase was stated. And it has been, and was stated a few times throughout the Bible, but he misunderstands judgment. I wanted your take.
Okay, and also I want to tie it into this. Now, if you notice, for most of our lives, and I guess for most of history, we've been used to Italian-speaking popes. Mm-hmm. Now we have a Spanish-speaking pope, mm-hmm. and it's no coincidence that that happened when it did, with the conversations that are going on nationwide concerning illegal aliens and citizenship in America, and then with the booming Latino population. It was a way to help to appeal to the masses, the same way like you mentioned the motivational speaking that you hear in churches with no power, no Holy Ghost power behind it, like I like to say, a la Joel Osteen, just to keep your skin and grinning and happy. Well, this Pope, he has taken that to the papal pit. He does the same thing, but on a worldwide, or rather on a global level. He is doing the Joel Osteen, but on a global level. And so in order to be all-inclusive and to have this one world order, which, the world in Novus Ordo Seclorum, the Seclorum is secular. It's really one secular order. You have to take out God. Now, one thing that atheists and agnostics like to try to prickle us believers with is, God is a judgmental God, just waiting to throw lightning bolts at us anytime we do something wrong. Mm-hmm. And they use that as an excuse to get off into do as thou wilt. They really don't want a Lord. Everyone wants a Savior. They want somebody to save them, but nobody wants to be obedient mm-hmm. and do what they told. So this Pope plays to that and to the atmosphere of only God can judge me that our brother Tupac helped to create, because I specifically remember I never heard brothers and sisters quoting that like they quoted it after Tupac came out. But,
I think Salt and Pepper did, but I'm not sure if they did that before or after him.
well, they did. Well, it didn't go viral.
No, it didn't. No.
After they said it, things that Pac said, like this between Europe doing something and America doing something. When Pac did it, everybody followed. And not to just put that on him. I mean, we can look at the hip hop culture and see its contribution to do as thou wilt. But the only God can judge me. and the you only live once, and the do what you like, even, all point back to this same lack of accountability, lack of responsibility that is prevalent among, you want to say the young, but among society today, period. And this Pope plays into that. So you don't have to be accountable for being gay, okay? You don't have to fear the judgment of God. Mamas and daddies and grandmamas and granddaddies used to put the fear of God in you. Spare the rod, spoil the child. That, again, that atmosphere is gone. The fear of God being a good thing, being a tool to help scare you straight, that atmosphere has been erased. And so as now it's just, to have that fear of God is irrational. Look at the crazy things that Christians do based on that fear of God, like the anchor man who shot his co-workers, or different things that are coming out in the news, like the boyfriend who stabbed the little baby girl and said that it was her time to die because she was possessed. Okay, like Morgan Freeman's granddaughter. Ain't this a coincidence? Okay, whose boyfriend stabbed her, talking about she was demon possessed. Okay, these are the beginnings of that labor that is going to birth that Christian persecution. And the Pope's compliance with the do as thou wilt philosophy, by being this easygoing rock star Pope, okay, is all a part of it. And it's attractive to people because it does not give them the conviction, it does not convict them and make them accountable. They can, do as they will and still be told, hey, who am I to judge? You can still get into heaven by the man who is called the vicar of Christ. He is the mouthpiece of Christ. Really, by the word vicar, according to their definition, he's defined as the substitute for Christ. And around the world, people have, for a long time, I think people have seen through the facade of the Catholic Church, and folks don't believe that hype like they once did, okay? So he's not attacked by the atheist or by the agnostic because he's not attacking the atheist or the agnostic. He is not out of sync with what they say and what they believe. He's really leaving a space, all-inclusive, for this new secular order, for agnostics and atheists to be able to get in and get a sense of spiritual power out of their life without the judgment, sans the judgment, okay? People misquote a lot of things that the Bible says, and without having the scripture in front of me, I know that the part that people leave out of the judge not lest ye be judged, for by the same judgment you judge, you shall be judged. People don't think about what comes after the semicolon, after judge not. Okay? It's not telling you not to make any judgments. That's foolish. You make judgments all the time. You judge whether or not this is a good price for this coat or not, or you judge whether or not, perhaps I can make this yellow light. We make judgments all the time. Okay, so, but what that scripture is saying in a nutshell is to judge fairly. Well, this society don't want you to judge at all. Because if you judge fairly, you're going to say, Caitlin looked like a hot mess. Sure. You made a terrible mistake. If you judge fairly, you're going to say things that will rock the boat and disrupt the status quo of where things are supposed to go. So judgment has to be seen, unless you're looking at Judge Joe Brown or Judge Mathis, judgment has to be seen as a negative thing, okay, unless it has been caricatured and turned into something entertaining. Okay, judgment is not to be taken seriously in a Qualian society, which is, that's what a Luciferian society is. And that's what we're finally seeing America become, what she was always raised to be from the time she was just a little baby girl. When they first brought her over here and set up the 13 colonies, the intent was this. This is not a mistake. The intent was this lawless land. Okay, we got to always look back at the great work and the whole thing about in the great work is this alchemy. That's not the basic alchemy of turning base metals into gold, but the alchemy of turning man into God. And ultimately, their view of a God is someone who does whatever they want to do without judgment. Who can judge God? And so they are enticing the world. And when I say they, I mean the real brotherhooders, the ones who are running the chessboard. They're enticing the world to accept that same lie that Lucifer first sold in the garden, and to, by default, become a part of the great work and this alchemy and transform yourself. They will say from man to God. In reality, it's from man to demon. Because the more you open up yourself, I like how you use that term, like you can find on the Detroit Masonic Temple website, the largest Masonic temple in the world. You use that term bodies. They need the bodies. Mm-hmm. See, over time, the body gives up and sacrifices so much of itself. You're only partially there. There's more demon there than human.
Mm-hmm. And it speaks of that in Daniel. It's like it speaks of that in Daniel when Daniel is trying to interpret Nebuchadnezzar's dream, where he talks about the merging of Miri clay, and I don't know if it's metal, but he says they don't quite mesh.
Right.
But he mentions them as being that is, and some people can call that transhumanism. They call that cyborgs, whatever you want to call it. It is Satan trying to not necessarily put his seed, but trying to artificially combine us with it so we can become demon-like, because Satan wants us in its image.
Mm-hmm.
And however the mark takes it, whatever form that it takes, it wants us to have its DNA, its material, its spirit, evil spirit energy in us, however that manifests itself physically.
Yes, indeed. And even down to, I was thinking about music the other day, and I must apologize to all of the listeners and all the regular listeners of our channel for not being able to be online and really be on top of what's been happening in the news, just because trying to get certain things established just in the physical and material realm so that we can get everything back up and running the way that it needs to be. So I was out of the loop concerning a lot of things. But what never escapes me is the different forms of body snatching that pop up, okay? Mm-hmm. It's all about body snatching. Like you said, they need the bodies. And, whether it's by transhumanism or by transsexualism, mm-hmm. the enemy's goal is to dehumanize you. Mm-hmm. He wants to take away that which the Lord had made and then to replace it with something. Now, remember, he can't create. So if he can just skew you, if he can cause you to be a lunatic, okay, or to be in a constant state of regret because you chopped off your manhood or chopped off your womanhood, okay, if he can just have that trauma and that torment from you, he's good. Mm-hmm. And that's how things always end up when you make a deal with him. And that's what people do when they decide, I'm going to step into this little area of transhumanism and I'm going to get, this type of implant, or I'm going to get some horns implanted on my head. The more and more that you step toward him, he will give you the illusion of there's a power coming. See, feel it, feel the tingle of it. See, I showed you a little bit of it. And once he gets you far enough in, he leaves you hanging. Mm-hmm. That's his goal for the world as a whole. And, we're seeing it through so many different things, even through the music. I was wondering about some old school music a few days ago, some I was listening to. And I was just, rethinking my old theories about music and different things, as I do from time to time. I haven't spent so much time around it. I always come back to the same answer, But I was listening and letting my mind think about some things concerning music and the frequencies and whatnot. And, you cannot deny that the further you go back in R&B music or soul music, the better the music sounds.
Oh, for sure.
The instrumentation, the messages, everything. Mm-hmm. And so,
the singing, which they don't do anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. But I felt the Lord saying to me, think about how people were, okay? The vibration that people had on them, the type of vibes people had. Hey, man. Hey, bro, what's happening, bro? Soul power, Mm-hmm. The vibration was different. And, not to say that what made that vibration a better different was the racial unity part of it per se. But no, it was just the peace part of it. okay? The desire for harmony with one another, the desire to listen to one another, the desire for me to want to express myself, brother, in the way I dress, the way I dance, the way I play my music. And, hey, you can appreciate the way I express myself. It had to do with how people were. Well, now the hearts of many has waxed cold, and so there's no energy coming from the music. Well, there's none coming from the instrument. The instrument don't even vibrate. Can you bang on a keyboard? There's no vibration. Who's using a piano? Who brings a grand piano to the studio? Or who goes to a studio that even has a grand piano? So, nowadays they use a grand piano plug-in. It sounds like a grand piano, and you can put some effects on it and make it have a sustain, like a as if there was an actual sustain pedal. So, but the frequency that real instruments produces, okay, puts you in a certain frame of mind, okay? As the mind goes, the body follows. So we've been degrading for years. As the music degraded, we would have to degrade. As the frequency in the music changed, we would have to change. The human body is a tuning fork. It is a sounding board. And so now we're getting digital as opposed to the real note of C or the real note of A or the real chords. We're getting everything digitized, which is a part of transhumanism too, because although it is a gift from the Most High, music is a thing that man produced. Well, now the machines are producing. Exactly. We think we still doing something because we have to push a button and tell the machine what to do. But no, you used to have to touch that thing with your finger and transfer your vibration from your finger to the guitar string or from your finger to the drumstick to the actual skin on the drum. Mm-hmm. Now that part has been taken away.
One thing I noticed when we were growing up, when we listened to certain kinds of music, let's say when our parents were growing up, and even when we got older, we started to like even their music. You start to get more mature. You actually start to like jazz. Some of you who didn't grow up listening to country, you start listening to old country, not this new stuff. You're like, hey, that's got a story behind it. You actually, I think some of us, not all, I've seen some 40-year-olds who still are not quite catching up, but that's a part of that transformation where we had a retardation of certain generations, and it didn't always have to do with drugs that made them that way, being stagnant, where they don't seem to mature like normal people should mature. When you got up, you stopped. I mean, if you've got to the point where you're not wearing your pants sagging anymore or whatever you used to do when you were 15, I don't care if it was in the 1960s, 70s or whatever, you start to change how you behave as you become a man or a woman. Even your taste in music starts to change. And sometimes what I don't see that. You see people who are way too old who are not making that transition into emotional maturity, not just in terms of their taste in music, but in terms of their general behavior. And that's happening way too much now. And I noticed that, because, there's some music that I used to like when I was growing up. I can't stand to listen to it. I can't stand that vibration of that boom, boom, boom when I hear it in a car. But if you're playing some Marvin Gaye or you're playing some music, even some music from the 90s where they were harmonizing, or some real instrumental music, I can resonate with that. I will always resonate with Sly and the Family Stone. Okay, what I'm saying? I didn't necessarily always grow up listening to that. My parents didn't listen to that music. My dad was more into jazz, but when I hear that music, I feel that music. My body, my core, my solar plexus, I hate to use those new agey terms, but that resonates with that music because it's real instruments being played and real voices. You know what I'm saying? With people singing as opposed to this kid rap I hear all the time with these little boy voices from coming out of grown men's mouth. I just can't.
Do you remember there was a Grammy Award-winning group that came from out of Atlanta? Basically came from out of nowhere because we could just about track everybody who was coming out at this time in the golden era of hip-hop. Mm-hmm. And they came from out of nowhere. The song was relatively commercial. It was kind of well-received because it had the guise of being Afrocentric or cultural. And at that time, that was a good marketing tool. And they had an interesting name that has just really revealed itself to me in recent years. Mm-hmm. And that was a group called Arrested Development.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Hip-hop is all about arrested development. Some folks will say, well, hip-hop keep you young. No, it stagnates your growth. Okay, that's what it's designed to do. Now, again, the Lord can take what the devil meant for bad and turn it around for good. But the enemy had a plan, and he allowed for every part of pop culture, because he's the father of the culture. He allowed for every part of pop culture to help to move everything in the direction of this plan. And hip-hop did not escape it, and music in general. If you want to know about society, check out its music. I think that was Plato or Socrates or one of them cats. But the music is also shaping this new secular world and creating zombies in the mind. You know, you look at the way the kids move, and, you know, I mean, the way we moved, you go back and look at some of the kids playing, we was moving awful funny too, but, you know, the spell has a different intensity now, okay, because of the lack of any saving good graces. You know, back in the day, you did have knowledge rap. You did have, you know, some positive rap. You had people who was trying to talk about the conditions of the world and things of that nature. Nowadays, it's none of that. And so these frequencies are bombarding the young, impressionable minds and malleable brains of the young, and really putting a number on their psyche, opening them up to all sorts of disembodied spirits and mind control. You know, it's not just the spirit realm that roams the ethers. It's also different electromagnetic impulses and things constantly shot through the air to try to move our thinking in one direction or another. So a lot has been done, and music has played a huge part in creating this perfect transhuman. Mm-hmm. And as we look more into it, this perfect transhuman, this body, is really a zombie. And that's what the secret societies want to create. They are the Psalms 2 and 2 kings of the earth. And so, therefore, they need someone to serve them. And so they are creating unwilling and really unknowing servants, especially out of the young, mm-hmm. who are, you know, especially susceptible to these subtle changes in things. They don't see the changes. They grow up with it. Hey, this is what we do. Mm-hmm. And then the elders are supposed to come in and say, no, son, no, nephew, no, niece, check this out here. Uh-huh. Look here. They fooling y'all. See, this is what we used to do. We used to listen to it like this or do it like this. But there's no conversation there, because 9 times out of 10, Uncle got his hat around, turned to the back too, looking like a hot mess, mm-hmm. trying to listen to some Gucci Mane with his nephew. The generation gap, which served its purpose, has all but disappeared, and now you have this one homogenized, goofy goober, you know, the one-size-fits-all goofy goober suit that everybody's putting on. Yeah. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's turning you into that body, into that lifeless body, into that host that the secret societies desire, because their demon masters require.
When you were talking about how Lucifer doesn't mind transforming you just so you can have a regret about your transformation, there was something that I was tipped off to by listening to about a man who had a sex change, and his name is Walt Heyer, Heyer. And on his site, he was talking about how he had, I'm not sure if he had grandkids, but he had a wife, he had a family, he had a pretty good life. And he said that, I'll read things he says are 3 things you will take away from the pages of his book. He wrote, it's called Paper Genders, where he explores the medical treatment for gender identity issues with a fresh perspective, combining well-researched facts with personal accounts and heartbreaking struggles. And I'll give you a summary of what I remember he said without reading it. He said that when he told everyone, he's had tattooed lipstick, eyebrows, and he also has some physical regular tattoos on him. He said, now I have to go around looking like this. He said, because when he told people he was going to go through this transition after having built up a whole family and a life, he thought he needed to be a woman. His Christian church that he went to was like, okay, basically you go do you, but they didn't have anything to do with them, but nobody said, stop, wait a minute. Right. Look, you got a family, you got this, are you sure? Have you talked to, no one told him to not do it. And he actually says, in hindsight, he wished they had. Somebody had said something, and he was a grown man. We're not talking about a teenager. Like that boy in a wig. I forget where it was, but this young boy who wanted to use the girls' facilities or something. And he's, not even trying. I've seen some serious transgender, well, he's a kid, but, adults who really put in more effort.
Right.
For all we know, he might be just trying to get in the girls' locker room from the way he looked,
That's what I thought, right?
That's what I was thinking. That's something that I can see a young man doing that. Anyway, but the things he writes is even the doctors who would do these surgeries made a comment that you cannot change someone's gender. All you're doing is making them neuter. You're not making them into men.
Gender's not something you can actually locate biologically. Wow.
Yeah, you're just so you're just neutering them if you actually take off their parts. Now, granted, we're talking about all those hormonal injections and all those things. You're still chromosomally a man or a woman. There's nothing you can really do about that. That's just the way it is. Unless, and I don't think Lucifer will ever figure out a way to exactly change that. He can just make you into a thing, I guess. That's pretty much all he can do.
Lucifer would never want you to be happy by being comfortable with being a man or a woman, if that's your challenge or struggle. He would constantly, we didn't touch his level, I know a little bit about his style. He would love to have you every day wake up and look in the mirror and battle with regret, battle with, should I have done it? Did I make a mistake? I can't go back now. He would love it. He would feed off of that and eat so good off of that. There's no way he would ever let a single track feel confident and secure. And, well, I did the right thing, honey. I don't care what they say out their raggedy mouth. Because that's how he does. He has to do that. So it's a trick bag from the jump.
So I really hope that if there's anybody out there, and please reconsider. If you're going so far, if you're already homosexual, that's one thing. That's a spiritual thing you'll have to deal with, and talk to your friends and family about that. And maybe they've all accepted you. But if you're ever thinking about doing any serious transformations to your body, I'm just going to say right now, you just don't do it. You have enough to deal with, and perhaps having the feelings that you're having right now. To do a physical change to your body unnecessarily will be way too psychologically and spiritually traumatizing for you, whether you recognize it or not. I don't care what a psychiatrist says. I don't care how many your so-called supportive friends say. You need to look at your friends and look at their lives. If they're telling you to do that, to decide whether you need to be taking advice from them anyway, especially on something that's serious. So this is something that if you've never prayed before, you need to pray on that, and make sure you're hearing from the right person, because the devil's speaking to you too. So, but I would just say don't do it. Just deal with the fact that you're struggling with your sexual identity. Deal with that first, and address that, and pray on that. But don't do any physical changes to yourself. Permanent physical changes, especially.
Amen. Please don't, especially young brothers and young sisters, because I bear witness. When you are young, you do a lot of things that you swear you sure of. And later on, you regret. A lot of things. Mm-hmm. You want to try to make those things you can recover from, if you can. Mm-hmm. Okay? Don't, the permanence of a tattoo, that's one thing. We're talking about the permanence of getting something removed from you or added to you. That's a whole other ball game. Mm-hmm. And what if you find out one day that you don't feel the same way you do today? It's not like getting that tramp stamp colored over. Nope. So, please, just give things some time to sort out, especially when you are young. You are bombarded with all sorts of hormonal changes, and the world that y'all live in is 1,000 times more sexualized than the Two Live Crew influenced world that I grew up in. And, that was bad enough, but y'all got it bad. Mm-hmm. And so there's all kinds of options on the flow. I think the most heinous thing that the devil is doing right now is creating confusion in the minds of pubescent and adolescents and teenagers more than they already have, because now they have these other options. Now the teacher is reading stories, where a character can have two fathers or two mothers to the children. And this is, creating a confusion that's really unfair to put on them. Now, it's one thing when you get up in your 20s and your 30s and you want to take your raggedy stuff out somewhere and change yourself around. Oh, well, hey, I wish you wouldn't. But that's different. A child is an innocent, okay? they don't even have enough information to try to weigh that decision properly. To me, that's the illest thing that's happening concerning that entire agenda, that whole pink hand and transhumanist agenda thing, is the way that they have, they full-fledged have went at the kids, and they have it set up where anyone who tries to interfere with that will be seen as, quote-unquote, homophobic. Exactly. Any parent or parental group or watchdog group that says, well, hey, it's not fair to expose these children to these things. Perhaps they would never be exposed to this, or they would never want this for their lives had you not been, pumping up this as a choice. It was not a choice growing up. You got called some names, you got beat up, okay? Mm-hmm. And that was life, okay, as opposed to, it's bullying and some things need to happen like they used to happen. Maybe I'm just getting old, but
yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
I know. I mean, when we dealt with bullying, none of us went crazy, and well, it depends. It depended on what your background was. Within the African American community, if we got beat up, we either fought, we just got beat up because we wouldn't fight back. Whatever, you dealt with it. And you grew up, and I heard people, close to my age laughing about, oh, this happened to me, that happened to me. You work your way through it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It doesn't become a thing where it's this.
I need therapy.
Yeah, where you need therapy, or you're so traumatized 20, 30 years from now. No, I hear people just,
Because he called me fat.
Yeah.
He used to call me, my name Theodore. Mm-hmm. He used to call me Fatador. Okay?
Yeah.
Detroit public school kids was out cold. No. It was funny. I laughed too.
Uh-huh.
And I kept on them. I kept on big head Marcus. I kept on all.
Mm-hmm.
So it created a way for you to learn how to resolve conflicts as a child. Mm-hmm. My God.
Yeah.
So then you grow up as an adult. You're unable to resolve conflicts. One thing I hate to hear people say now, and I hear this all the time from a certain generation, it seems, that, uncomfortable, or no, awkward.
Yeah.
So what? Deal with it.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? So if something is awkward, you run away.
So, and it's almost like they're programming us to not want conflict. So when you get shut down for saying something, for judging someone or saying something is correct, you don't want to face that rejection, that hostility. So you back off. And then you let someone do something that's continually wrong, even when it's someone close to you, who you say, "Hey, don't do this," because you don't want to feel like you're judging someone, or they'll even incorrectly use terms to say, if you tell someone they're doing something wrong, that somehow you're phobic, and it doesn't even apply. Phobic this, and so that makes you feel a certain. So if you care, you feel, are you doing the right thing? Are you saying what you really feel is right? They really are twisting things around. And in terms of how they're conditioning children to accept certain type of sexual behaviors, it reminded me of this interview I saw with a woman whose name I can't remember, who was talking about how she was raised literally, she straight up said it, in an Illuminati cult, how she was conditioned to think that having sex with old men and adults was okay. That was a part of her conditioning. Mm-hmm. And she was even told by these people who were deeply occulted that she would turn on them. And she said, I would never do something like that, because she thought what she was doing was right. And later on, she began to recognize, when she got out of the cult and she had to get her husband and her children out of the cult, because she left first and he kept the kids. And she said it took her praying and getting with a group of Christians to help her pray. She said that somehow, I guess, the spirit was able to communicate to him, where he even panicked. And he said, I got to get us out of here, because he had to leave the cult, because initially she didn't have access to her children for some period of time because he was keeping them in. So we don't need a cult anymore. We've got the school system. That's our cult. We've got the media. That's our cult. So all this, we live in an occultic society, period. So they can condition us through the media. So your children are being conditioned to accept a lot of perverse things. And if you're not paying attention to it, I fear for people who have children. But to move on to another topic slightly, unless you was something else you wanted to talk about regarding that, did you think about Putin's and Obama's? Well, they weren't visiting each other, but they were in the UN together. Okay. So then they're focusing on their behavior and their responses as opposed to the issue, which is the fact that Obama wants President Assad of Syria removed, and Putin wants to work with them, saying if we remove Assad, ISIS is going to take you over, which is exactly because you think about these guys all being on the same side, and this is probably just the dance they're playing for the rest of us. So this is just all a game. Because it almost looks like they're acting. Because I know these guys, they got to be all on the same team. But
Yes,
they're
no doubt
performing.
about it. No doubt about it. They are powerful demonic hosts.
Mm.
But in reality, in essence, they're just puppets and figureheads.
Mm-hmm.
Putin is getting bossed up on by the Russian elite families and those that made all the way back to the Romanov dynasty, who knows, or even beyond. And they are telling him what to do. They selected him. They picked him. He's their boy. Same thing with Obeezy. Obeezy is nothing but a puppet of the Zionist elite and secret societies on both sides, on both Putin's side and on Obeezy's side, are really calling the shots. And those secret societies are all linked up as one. As you go up higher and higher, you begin to see that there are less and less differences between these individuals. They all actually have the same agenda, and so it serves them well to work together. Now, in front of us, they have to give us the illusion that we have some freedom of choice and that we're choosing them, as opposed to they're actually being installed. And so now we're in the fourth quarter of that, okay, for Mr. Putin and Obeezy. And that fourth quarter is about them playing out their roles in Revelations, the bear as Russia and America as the eagle, but also about, most importantly, the wars and rumors of wars. Why the rumors of wars? Why did Messiah specifically point out rumors of wars? Okay, mm-hmm. And we can look into the concordance and find out what word was originally used for rumors, but just using our Holy Spirit discernment and our common sense, okay, understanding that rumors of wars, which things being talked about that aren't necessarily true, and what role does that play in our society today? Well, today we call that misinformation and disinformation. Okay, and misinformation and disinformation concerning wars comes from our news outlets, which we know are controlled by one or two or three sources at this point now. Regardless of what the outward look appears to be, there's only a couple people running the news and only a couple people running music. Well, they're crafting stories to help to tell the tale of Revelation and how it's to be fulfilled by these players in this grand chess game. It's a grand Masonic chess game in which, like the black and white, they believe that they're literally and figuratively, the villains of the Bible. They are purposely trying to step into those roles. And by them purposely stepping into those roles, they always were those individuals. They always were. God always knew it. And so now we're coming to this critical time where, used to be called the superpowers are again in some sort of tense relationship, and it involves the Middle East. When Russia moved their military presence to Syria, the first news that I heard, because I believe that was around the time I was watching the Republican convention, but the first news about it was to cause you to have concern. And I was watching CNN, which is supposed to be at, the middle of the road as far as right wing and left wing goes. But their first stories on it, was stories to make you nervous. Hey, there's going to be a problem. There's going to be tension. Rumors of wars. And so why have rumors of wars? What does that accomplish? Everything that the enemy does with any degree of success, he does best with fear, okay? Using fear, feeding off of our fear. Once we're fearful enough, all you have to do is just sit back and watch the fireworks.
And what's also counter to that is apathy. It's like to some degree of us being conditioned with being fearful, and then some of us just tune out and we're apathetic. That doesn't seem to really work against him that much. So,
well, see, he'll take neutral as fast as he'll take reverse, because if you stay in neutral long enough, it'll roll back.
Oh, that's true.
So to him, an agnostic is as good as an atheist. His bet is if they stay in that, they'll.
That's where you put that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So but he's a crafty cat. One thing is for certain, he's got a lot of L's on his record. He loses a lot. And he sacrifices his own folks a lot. If I were a betting person, if the Russian scare went any further, or the Obama, Assad, ISIS
Putin square got more chaotic and gangster, I wouldn't bet against obesity. I mean, I just really have this sense, and, it's not the American thing. It really isn't. It's the Babylon thing. I really have this sense that, America's going to get towed down to the ground, but it's going to rebuild, and the building up of America will be to the world like the building up of the Trade Center Towers into the one world trade thing that it is now was to New York. The whole world will marvel at the destruction and the resurrection of America. And I think that's going to all take place while Obama's in office. Now, how extreme or visible that destruction becomes, I don't know if it's ever going to look like Deep Impact. That came from Hollywood, okay? And they want us to expect things with our eyes that we should expect with our spirit. So I don't know how visible these things will be. I'm not certain on that, although I have partners and friends in the ministry who have the gift of seeing in the spirit, and they see things of that nature. And again, I don't know if that's just the way the Lord is translating it to them, so that they can understand how ugly it is, okay, to show them how ugly things are going to be on the spiritual level. The analogy is to show you how, the ugly alien on the physical level, actually invading. Okay, so how far that goes into the physical realm, I don't know. And we'll all see that together. But what I am sure of is that everything that's happening now, all of the big moves, the wars, the rumors of wars, what politicians are getting along, what politicians are being ousted, what politicians are on their way out.
Like Boehner, that shocked me. Boehner leaving.
Well, see, you see a lot of the old school guys, I think, getting fed up. And, either they see that, the end game is, hey, we lose in the end. And, they want out for that reason, or, maybe just more base level reasons like, well, hey, my family's tight. I've got my bunker ready beneath the rocks in Colorado, and I'm done with this. We've made enough money. I'm tired of this. I'm going to leave this business to such and such, and I'm out of here. Well, of course, it's not being explained to us like that, but I think some videos back I said to, begin to expect a lot of old school folks to just start bowing out. It was after I heard about Field Night from Nike and then Donna Karen. The Lord was putting it in my mind that, okay, a lot of folks is ready to either go hide, get out, or come to me. And that's what the Lord had put in my spirit. So we're seeing all three. We're seeing all three things happening. We may never know, which is which, from one time to the next, but do believe we're seeing all three things occur. We're seeing them. We see some of them run to the bunkers. The wicked flee when no man pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. We're seeing some of them try to stand their ground and try to battle with the thing and get ousted. And then we're seeing some of them just want to try to disappear and repent and come back to the Lord. It's Anton LaVey on his deathbed, allegedly, but many Satanists and members of the quote-unquote Illuminati have made those deathbed confessions. And I think that now we're at a stage where, besides deathbed confessions, you will also just have folks who just want to defect and, understand the system and know that a confession, who could you confess to? What media outlet could you get that type of message out through? Well, hey, I was all wrong. I worshiped Lucifer all these years. I was all wrong. I want the Lord in my life now. And I want to tell everyone. And see, we're not going to have the benefit of those deathbed confessions. These are things that we just have to know and feel are happening in the spirit.
Which one was it that, I don't know if it was Anton LaVey or it was Crowley that said that on their deathbed, they said, I'm confused as he was dying. I know maybe I could have sworn that someone like they were a bit perplexed about the moment of their death. I don't know what they were seeing or feeling.
Crowley's last words were supposedly, I'm perplexed.
Perplexed, yeah, something like that, yeah.
You can imagine he was laying there in poverty and squalor because as the devil does,
of the devil's downest general. And you see how he did him. And as he was laying there in poverty and squalor, he was poor, a disease, riddled with sexual diseases. As he was laying in his deathbed, losing his mind, going crazy, and still halfway with his foot in the demonic realm, the demons came to get him. And I'm sure he saw, and I'm sure he said some incantations and some mighty words of power like he had done many times before that he would say, and the demons would fool him and make him think that those words had control over them. And so he would say those words as these demons was walking through his deathbed door, and the words are having no effect, and they're grinning, more and more maniacally at him, the more that he tries to say the spells and incantations that used to work. And then he resigns to say, I'm perplexed. Yeah, all that work you put in, and you didn't get to be a general in hell like you thought you would. You're going to be a peon like the rest of them, begging for a drink of water, burning in eternal flames, constantly going through the same torture and torment over and over and over again. Quite perplexing.
Now, have you heard this? I was trying to find the video on YouTube where I had the woman was saying that she was brought up as a part of being in an MK Ultra Illuminati cult or whatever as a child. Mm-hmm. And she made the comment that one thing they make their practitioners do is that they have to acknowledge that there is God and that there is Jesus Christ before as a part of their acceptance. So you got atheists who truly don't believe. They really don't believe in anything agnostics because they don't realize by default what they're doing. But the people who are true Luciferians, they actually, if they're in these cults, they have to acknowledge it. So you would think that someone like Crowley would know. I mean, he knew there was a God.
That's right.
But he didn't believe that Lucifer was a liar. But I'm just confused about their level of deception. I guess maybe that's what happens when you attach yourself to the demonic. It just makes it
lunacy.
Yeah, lunacy.
There's a level in magic. Now, this is real occult wizard level philosophy and knowledge. Okay. There's a certain level of wizardry that you get to where you get in touch with your spirit guide or your spirit aid or whatever. You've been in touch with them for some time, but now you're ready to take it to this next level. To go to this next level, you have to lose all sense of what you thought was sane. That's the trick. That's the trick back. You have to be able to totally let go of every preconceived notion that you have of sanity and what is normal, and you have to break that as far as you possibly can in order to enhance your spirit being a spirit guide to be able to give you this next level of power. That's the level at which a warlock or a witch goes crazy, right there at that level. And so therefore they're not playing with a full deck. Crowley knew too much to believe his own hype. When you start to believe your own hype, that's a strong delusion. Entertainers go through it all the time. You be like, nah, I know such and such, that they hair look like a hot mess, or I know Kanye know better to be wearing that dress. They be in a strong delusion. Brother, you from Chicago, I know you know better than that.
Exactly.
Strong delusion. And that's, the sad thing is that's what you see coming over the whole land. The land as a whole is in a strong delusion. Yes, apathy to another degree. Apathy like I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. In general, a teenager is somewhat apathetic, unless they're, an exceptionally civic-minded teen. But in general, they go, oh, well, okay, it doesn't matter. In general. But the ones now, and again, like I said, we got some good nieces and nephews out here made and designed for the last days. But I'm talking about the average goofy goobers walking around here. They don't want to know. And if you tell them, they get mad at you because you messing up their fantasy. You talking while the movie's going. Mm-hmm. They're watching this good fantasy movie of life, and they enjoying it and believing it. And here you come with your truth and stuff and your Bible stuff, even worse. Because now I got to think about, am I right or wrong? I'm living my life, man. I'm doing me. You only live once. Don't judge me.
And on that note, regarding judgment, this is a good time for a break. Join me and my guest Unplugem on the other side where Brother Theo will delve into a particular revelation prediction, what's going on in America's Fraternal Order of Police, and you'll find out who Unplugem believes will be the last man or woman standing after the 2016 presidential election, or if there will even be an election. Welcome back with me, your host, Roberta Ripley on escapingthemaze.com. I hope you enjoyed that musical interlude. Now let's get back to some heavyweight jamming with Unplugem, a.k.a. Theodore Jackson. When people would speak of these last days, I know that people say they're not supposed to talk about the time and when it's going to happen, the date or the time. But I was listening to a gentleman called Doug Hamp. And he was doing something on the Nephilim and the Old Testament and how important it is for us to understand the Old Testament, to understand the New Testament. But one thing he mentioned was about there was a sign when the flood was going to happen. And I forget what he said that sign was in the Old Testament. And I apologize, everyone. I'm still trying to retain a lot of things I'm learning from the Bible. I'm having some problems with retention because it's a lot. And I will get better at it as I become stronger in my faith. But he was talking of whatever that point was in the Bible in the old times. He said it was 120 years. So we had that generation to prepare for, I guess, the coming of the flood. He said that he believed, this is Doug Hamp, that the new indication of when Jesus Christ would come, which I thought that was kind of dangerous territory, was when Israel was established. He called it the budding of the olive tree or the budding of the fig tree. And he says, so he goes from 1948 and he thinks 120 years from now, that is when Jesus Christ is going to come. Well, if that's not a date prediction, I don't know what is. And I'm glad for this time of grace and mercy. But 120 years is a long time. If that is from 19, I guess it's 2015. So would that be another, 43, whatever, 53 years?
I don't ascribe to anything that tries to discern things of the Most High by using the falsely established Zionist state of Israel as a measuring stick for prophecy. Not only are we talking about a people who, and not to try to put them down, but just to put them in the right perspective, we're talking about, by and large, a people who are not the people that the Lord was referring to when he talked about Israel. We're talking about a people who are not the people, and we're talking about, arguably a land that is not the land. And we're also talking about a physical reality when it does appear that the Lord is speaking about a spiritual reality, a spiritual establishment, of Israel, the spiritual Israel, and they had a certain genetic makeup and certain ethnic features and background. It was far from what you see, and it was very close to what we be. And I know some folks, especially of Caucasian persuasion, have a very difficult time swallowing that. And then there are a great many truths who one might call white who see it as all right, because we can't identify with any academically approved sureness who Israel was. The next logical conclusion is that we're not talking about a physical thing if you cannot find it with your eye. We know about the philosophers in Ethiopia, different things of that nature. But again, some things are lost from history. And when the Most High allows for a thing to be lost, it's for a purpose. And so what he has left us with is who is my mother and who is my brother, but those who are my father. And he has made it clear that what we have to find is the spiritual Israel. How will you know who does the will of your father? You can't look at them and tell. You can't look at their hair texture and tell whether or not they do the will of your father. Yes. So, even with the blood moon thing, people was counting different things from the establishment of the state of Israel, which was false. The Egyptian president at the time, during the 6-7 war, 6 and 7, 13, he himself said, well, it's funny to me, the Israelites left Israel black and came back white. This was a Egyptian, for all intents and purposes, who appeared to have European features. Yeah.
saying this, but, it's not a point of contention. And it's only a point that I contend when I see the spirit of resentment rising up in otherwise good brothers and sisters. I've never once popped my collar, unless I'm playing around with y'all, as if I'm something great or somebody to look up to or whatnot. I ain't nowhere, okay? But you ain't going to take the truth from me because it make you uncomfortable with your position in society and life. Maybe you have to rethink a few things or a few thousand things in order to just let it simmer in your mind that Jesus could have been black and that all of the Israelite heroes and prophets of the Bible were black, which is the most common sense answer, but it's the hardest one to swallow. So with that being the least discussed conspiracy among conspiracy theories, it is the secret key to all things concerning Jews and the establishment of the state of Israel and how the Jewish holidays, happen to coincide with certain major events in history. It's because the Zionists planned those events to happen on those paganly influenced days that the Most High said he hated and didn't care about, but they're held up in the Jewish community as important power days, to do this and do that, wear funny hat and do all these old type of funny traditions and things of that nature. The Lord did not care about that, but they have to keep it because it gives them the appearance of it's keeping up a front, okay? And if they ever let it go, they slip a show. Okay, they'll look like the rest of them, which they already do. Okay, and again, I'm not talking down on anybody who's a true Jew. I'm talking about the Revelation 2:9 Jew. It's not stated enough that good, sincere practitioners of the way and who seek the face of the Lord, seek the Lord of the book and the book of the Lord, they're good to go. Should nobody had nothing to say about them, every tongue that rises up against them should be condemned. And, they can call themselves Jewish people. Okay. They can call themselves Hebrew. Okay. They, who is my mother, who is my brother, but those who do the will of my father. That's the criteria. So, no longer is the criteria about a geographic location. Now, at one time it was. No longer is the criteria about a genetic makeup. Okay. At one time it was. I mean, unless we can, I will reach out to the stars and quasars and say, well, those who will end up being believers had the proper genetic makeup in the first place, and that's why they could become believers. Who knows, okay? But but we are definitely at the time and place now where, like Messiah said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the last days. So a lot of things are going back to Old Testament ways. Or rather, a lot of things of the Old Testament that the new church has lied and said no longer apply, don't read it, don't need it. Those things, the Lord know how to show you better than he can tell you. And those things will be shown. We will begin to see more manifestations that prove that these are like the days of Noah. And one of those things is going to be that the real Israelite presence will be established as it was in the days of Noah. And there will be a lot of setting of the crooked things straight concerning that, concerning genetics and all of those things, what roles those things should play today, and concerning the Old Testament.
And there was a recent incident where these white cops shot a black Baltimore man in a wheelchair, and he was lifting up his pants, and they just unloaded on about 4 or 5 cops. He fell out of his chair and died, so I guess they felt safe at that point. And of course, they have a black, I guess, I don't know if he's the chief of police, speaking to the press, defending the actions of these white officers. And I'm still wondering, a lot of these murders, and granted, you can have black policemen who do this to other black people too, mainly males. But I understand, is it just that these officers, are they a part of a satanic brotherhood? I mean, is this a spiritual thing affecting them? I mean, I know this has been happening for a long time, but it seems like as much racial tension as we have in America, it's not random white people going out and killing black people. It's mainly fixated on the cops.
Right.
They're being used as this tool that I think some were saying was, they're trying to stir up a race war and all this stuff. But that's not happening because the average person is not thinking that way, be they black or white. They're not thinking about a race war. But What is all this channeling through the police department and highlighting these police officers? I mean, they seem to be very unique in how they're conditioned to feel very comfortable killing black people and black males, as if they have no soul or sense about the justice or injustice at all. I mean, is that a part of them being a part of a brotherhood, or is this just racist people just deciding they want to be cops? Racist white males who feel insecure and feel no power, and they feel this is how they establish their power. I mean, how do you fit this in the context of anything of what we're talking about here?
Okay, well, first and foremost, the Fraternal Order of Police is a Luciferian organization. So from the top down, its members will be affected by that energy and by that spirit. And black cops who are always busting young brothers upside the head and running their pockets and raiding their dope houses without turning in any money or any dope, just like white cops who have resentment issues or self-esteem issues or insecurity issues and feel some type of way about young brothers. Perhaps they're jealous of their swag or whatever it may be, or perhaps they just lived in communities where they were unable to interact with these people, and so all they saw of these people were sitcoms depictions, or even worse, police show depictions. And so the devil always does his thing through the mind, and he enters in through the mind of the insecure, of the inferior, especially, and tempts them with the promise of power that he never delivers on. But, he'll give them twos and fews and little nibbles and chews, but he'll never deliver on that power. And there is a spirit of violence over the land, in general, over the land. And there's a spirit of resentment over the land, in general. And there's resentment coming from black folks who resent being treated a certain way, and, that should be understood. And then there's resentment coming from white folks who are beginning to resent being made to feel like perpetrators, or they're feeling the accusatory finger pointing at them, a blanket accusation, and they are feeling rebellious and resentful because of it. You watch, white resentment will grow. I'm seeing it, even in folks who have good relations with our community generally, for whatever reason. Maybe they just like our women in some cases, but for whatever reason, they generally have good relations with the hood. They're having some kind of issue just with, God's lifting up of Jacob in the time of Jacob's trouble. The Bible words things most eloquently and simply. His yoke is easy and his burden is light. And when it says Jacob's trouble, that's a very simple title, very simple phrase with so much meaning to it. And so, to whom much is given, much is required. People will readily say, oh, you guys are better athletes in general and better musicians. Some folks might say you make better love. But we're not going to say there's nothing special about you. Mm. But yet, you know that there is. So it's just time for everybody to just stop jiving and talk real talk to each other. Sans the pride and sans the denial. That means black folks, hold your pride. I know you can't wait. Now you find out something good about you, so you never know that good before. Now you just can't wait to boss up on somebody. You sit down. Mm. And then on the other side, you got the denial. Oh, well, there's no proof of it. And he would have been an olive-skinned man. You show me an olive-skinned man. And again, you keep him in places like that and let him walk from end to end, and he going to be a olive-skinned tan man. Have mercy. And worse. And again, it's just a point. Hey, somebody would have to be able to claim, hey, Messiah is my color or my ethnicity. You just don't want it to be us. Because you're scared of that fuss. You're scared of that backlash. You're scared of that, see, let's see how y'all do that. You're scared of that. And that's understandable. That's human.
But you think they're scared of it as much as that in the back of their mind they've built up their own sense of pride and superiority, that for so long you put a people down and what does that say, what I've done? I mean, you know what I'm saying? There's something heavier going on there than just feeling bad. But here you are, the Messiah comes out looking like the very people that you've been told you're better than. And where does that put you, and how's that going to make you feel? You know?
Yeah, there's a great fear behind changing your point of views about, your diet. Have mercy. So let alone have to change your whole world view of how you fit in the world and your place in the world. And that's just real talk. And people don't want to deal with that. Now, if we was fighting and saying, well, you know what? Those aren't the real Jews. The Chinaman, that's the real Jew. That's the real Jew on the planet Earth. Well, nobody had no problem with it. But it's a problem because of the relationship, the rocky relationship, and the inferiority that has been pushed on the black man for a long time by many races, but most notoriously, historically, by men that were considered white men. Mm-hmm. And so there's a backlash to that, and a psychological backlash is worse. Psychological can be worse than physical pain, but there's a psychological backlash that comes with that. Okay, to where now you got to rethink your dream. Everything you thought you knew was wrong. You're not who you thought you were. And perhaps for some, this would mean a new level of humility, a new level of humbling myself that, I've not even fathomed before. And so, but that's God's doing. God wants the haughty to be humbled, to be exalted.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is the reason why we're going through what we're going through as black people. We were haughty. And we needed to be humble.
That, sister, without a doubt, we did it first. We was the first, and we was the worst. We did it first. We established these things, so-called science, so-called philosophy, so-called psychology, so-called civilization. We did it because we were taught it first by those folks who came in here, fallen, quote unquote, and their offspring, the Raphael, who became the kings and the mighty men of renown. They was giant. They could handle that. They leading armies in battles notoriously, of course. A big giant man leading y'all into battle. This is going to go down in history. So they became the men of renown, the mighty men. And they, the fallen and their children, influenced the first civilizations, okay, while other groups had not created civilization yet. Okay, they were still in cave stages. There was other places, and we know the names, okay, where civilizations were far advanced from where man should have been at that time. These were places where, not where ancient aliens intervened, like the goofy goober. I can't stand that ancient alien guy. He looked like a goofy goober. Yeah. But these were places where fallen angels came and intervened and helped to speed up mankind's quote-unquote development. And so, we got it first. So this totally pours cold water on any ideas of, grandiosity or vainglory, for that matter. Mm. And it sets us all back at even. Okay, we even Steven. We did it before. We was the ones before. We was the lofty, haughty-minded ones before. And, if you want to get into what certain disciplines will say, we enslaved them first. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't nothing but a big reverse to even things out and get us both out the curse. Exactly. And that's where it's at, okay, to get us both out this curse. But first have to be truth. You have to be able to accept some things that might make you uncomfortable. And that's for brothers and sisters who want to pop their collar and commit, And then that's also for white folks who want to pop their collar. There's no proof of that. Okay? Both of y'all lying and trapped in your pride. And both of y'all need to lay that pride aside, because pride will give you a blind side. You will not be able to see things totally. When you got pride in your child, or you got pride in your paintings, or pride in your food, I hope you let somebody else taste it and tell you what it really is. Because pride make you see things from your perspective, and that's usually skewed. Amen. So all pride should be done. Ain't nothing to be proud of. What, proud because let the fallen angels come down, trick our dominant male and female leadership, and turn them out, cause them to sacrifice and mind control their own people, and then spread that to the world. Ain't no pride in that. Ain't no pride in civilization. Ain't no pride in the pyramid. Okay, but it is what it is. We're not going to lie about it either. Mm-hmm. So that's where we're at now.
And to wrap this up, what are your feelings on who you think the last Democratic and last Republican candidates are going to be when they get ready to go head-to-head for the presidency?
Yeah. I have a strong feeling, and it's just a feeling, but I have this strong, strong feeling that goes along with some visions, and, there could be visions of my imagination, but I have a strong feeling the big O ain't going to go. But it's not going to look blatant. It'll be done subtly, more subtle than any other beast of the field. He will be moved from the White House to the big house. He's going to go to the UN and take another title that will still allow for him to have some empirical, because whatever spirit it is that's in him, there's a big boss spirit. It is the beast of Revelation. So he's not fitting to leave the scene. So how could he stay on the scene? Well, he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, great orator. He's perfect to be in the UN in some new capacity, some new position, perhaps they'll call it. Okay. The head speaker or something of that nature. But in essence, he will still be acting or appearing to act, for those who have eyes to see, as a policymaker. And then there's Hillary. For some reason, I can't take my eyes off Hillary, and it ain't because she's easy on the eyes, because she ain't. But it's something about her, knowing about her history, Lena, Arkansas, and all that type of stuff with her and her husband and MK Ultra, and even the things that were said by Kathy O'Brien in the book The Transformation of America concerning Hillary Clinton's deviant, behind closed doors activities. But I see her as a devil, witch, mother, goddess figure supreme. And I see her as the next president, okay? But I really believe these things will have new titles. They will be defined in new ways to go along with the new world order, okay? Mm-hmm. It won't be a president. We won't be voting for them, okay? It'll be something new. And that's what I believe that this next election is going to be about. I really do. I would be shocked and amazed, and I would listen back at this and think about what a goofy group our son is like if we're actually at the polls voting in 2016. I don't think so. I think that, probably around September of 2016, we will see the disasters strike. And folks won't want him to go. Folks won't want him to go anywhere. And he will be a comfort. He will comfort us with the soothing, smooth demeanor of Morgan Freeman. Mm-hmm. Make everybody just as comfy, relative to the situation. But it's going to be some heart attack causing things going on around us. And you're going to need a smooth criminal, a smooth talker to ease on in there and ease the people's fears long enough to get things moved to the next stage. Okay, they want so much fear and so much chaos, but past a certain point, you can't make people move and do certain things that you want them to do while they're panicked. You have to calm them down and then move them to the next point, then panic them. Remember how they did us during 9/11 with the color-coded warning system. That was that same philosophy, pull you along like a pimp, keep you in a state of chaos, smacking you up, making you scared, and then, smooth talk you and move you on to the next process, the next stage, and repeat. And that's what's going to happen. That's what I believe is going to happen, because no man knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. But let's just say that we actually are at the polls. You think it's just a delay to another time? Because just allowing you to kind of have some wiggle room on that. If it doesn't happen, and we actually are at the polls.
If we are at the polls, it'll be Hillary Clinton. It'll be Hillary Clinton, hands down.
Okay.
I watched the Republican debates, and it was, the word that kept coming to my mind in neon was distraction. And I kept thinking to myself, none of these guys will get it. I will state right here on escapingthemaze.com with Sister Roberta Ripley, I will state unequivocally, no Republican that was standing on that stage at that time is going to win. Period. End of story. Mm-hmm. That's nothing but a distraction and a diversion. Hillary Clinton will be, if we're at the polls, and, it's not situation critical, okay, to where, it's not feasible for people to get to the polls. If we're still at the polls and doing the president thing, it will be Hillary Clinton. Okay. Hands down.
Okay. All right. Because I was wondering, because they were acting like she wouldn't win. I don't know how, because they were talking about Biden. They kept talking about him. And he said, no, I got heartbreak because of my son. I said, why are they worried about Biden? There's nobody on the Republican side that really is standing out. So I don't know. I guess that was a part of the distraction. I just
Biden has already said what they told him to say concerning it, and he pretty much made it clear he ain't trying to run. He ain't thinking about it. And perhaps his son's death played more of a part in that than we will ever know. But he certainly said the right words that if I was Hillary would make me comfy today. Okay, you know what time it is. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's Hillary's turn. And I say that because of her connection to Rodham family and their connection to the elite families and her place in this thing. She wasn't just put with Bill because, she was a pretty face lawyer. Mm-hmm. This has been part of the chessboard game and even more importantly, part of Lucifer's plan from the very beginning to put certain people in place. Now, with all of the mother goddess imagery that we've seen with Katy Perry riding the beast, and different things we've been seeing, especially throughout pop culture, especially using the female artists, Beyonce to Whitney to Nicki Minaj. They have been making a way or preparing a way for us to receive Lucifer in feminine form. He liked to cross dress too. The caping thing was all part of this too. They've been trying to prepare us for that because a lot of folks say that that's the devil's first attempt. His first attempt is to come at you soft. He comes at you with plan B. And, that's the soft. Soft and smooth or with beauty or what you would call feminine wiles. Okay? And then after that gets him as far as it can, then comes the Bogart. Okay? And which is kind of opposite of the good cop, bad cop thing, where you bring in the bad guy first to slap him up and make him feel threatened, and then you bring in the good guy to give him some sense of peace. I think that right now they are ready to bring in the mother goddess, to bring in this nurturing figure or this figure of a mother and this feminine energy to help to bring us into the philosophies and the belief system of the New World Order. Once a baby is born, it has to be nurtured. And so that baby, the pregnancy analogy is a great one because it has so many applications, but we are witnessing the birth of that even, of the New World Order. Is it in effect? Well, again, she's on the gurney, okay, and getting ready to deliver, okay, but it's still not yet here, okay, not in the way that the enemy wants it to be established. But we are watching that happen. And I do believe that he will use, as he's, used throughout history, he will try to use the quote-unquote unassuming feminine charms, of a woman under his control to gain control. So that would be my prognostication on that.
All right. Well, Brother Theodore Jackson, I'm so glad that you said that on my show. And I'm so glad that I was able to get you again, despite all the technical difficulties you've been having. And so thank you so much for being on my show. And I also wanted to know, is there any projects or anything you have coming up that you would like to let your audience know about?
Yeah, you got some things on the horizon. As a matter of fact, there was a show that at the time of this taping, you guys were supposed to be able to see actually this morning. And, the enemy's still doing certain things just to be mischievous in the computers here. And
So it didn't upload, and it's talking about it's going to take some 3,665 minutes remaining, and it's been uploading since we started this conversation.
Yep.
And so that just goes to show you it's at 5%, and it's only an hour and 44 minutes long. But yes, there was a young brother minister that I had been prepping folks for, and we finally did our show last night. It came out excellent, and I was really happy and wanted to share it with everyone ASAP. So as soon as that's up, folks will see it. But anyone who knows ways around computer censorship, please contact me. And I mean from the smallest things, like some things that, maybe I should know, I don't know. Like, where do I go, or what site do I go to find something to convert my video to some other streamable file format so it can upload faster than this? This is ridiculous. But again, this is new, okay? I didn't change nothing from what I had been doing as far as my settings. So this is from their end. It's not from my end, okay? I've been doing the same process, methodically the same way, and they have changed. And, we know the game. We know why it's happening. It's not just happening to me. It's happening to other YouTubers. I ain't nobody special. So, yeah, anyone who can help give Unplugem some tech and information. I don't want to drain Brother Rousseau, who gave me some excellent help and information, and I utilized it right quick. But anybody who can help, and take some of the burden off that man, please contact me at unplugem@gmail.com. And also look forward to the DVDs that were banned from YouTube and then later from Google Plus to be, they're ready now. Brother Bonavita from out of New York blessed the ministry and made sure that we had everything that we need to be able to duplicate DVDs. So we're ready to do that. So I'm just ready for you guys to tell me what ones you want to see, and I don't know, how much do you think it should be worth, and all that type of stuff. So, but again, I left a message concerning that on last night's show, which we weren't able to upload yet. So
if anybody wanted to purchase those videos from you, they have to email you for them, or is there a site they can go to where they're posted, or how can they get them?
See, that's what I'm trying. Well, I mean, right now, I have the physical DVDs and physical DVD cases, which would require that they be mailed out. Okay. And, again, if someone has a better suggestion, some of y'all know more about cyberspace and things than I do, please don't hesitate. This is what I'm a baby bear. So please, let me know if there's a more efficient way to do it, okay? But I've got the DVDs. I got the masters burnt. I got cases, okay? The only thing that we would be concerned about is shipping and handling, figuring out what, I'm a fair and reasonable brother. I don't want to charge them more than $5 or $10, okay? But we want to make sure that the shipping and handling portion is taken care of. Mm-hmm. And, contact me, Unplugem, UNPLUGEM @gmail.com concerning that. Any questions or ideas you have with that, or if you're ready to get yours, we'll chop up the details in the emails. And do continue to support the ministry. We do need your support at this time more than ever. You can do so by Western Union, MoneyGram, or PayPal. If you use PayPal, you can go to A Temple of the Truer. That is TRUER. Yes, that's the word. Yahshua, YAHSHUA, @yahoo.com. And Sister will put a link up there. If that's not a viable option for you, just email me and we'll figure something out. But yeah, we do need every hand to the plow at this time. Every woman, every man. Unplugem @gmail.com. So I need some help.
Okay.
So again, any brothers and sisters who, and it's a shame because I know some of y'all young folks know how to do this type of stuff. I can't get my sibling. I know she could do it, but she just, I know it's tedious and you don't want to help nobody learn about nothing new. But I need some help from y'all. I need to know, okay, what's the best way to establish this, most efficient way to establish this, because that's not my point of study and research, just being real. So, but, I want to get them out to those who want them and to those who have already sown and shown
their love and support for this ministry, you know, I wanted to just give them to them. Okay, but again, we got to have something to start with. So, you know, do so supporting to the ministry. Contact me and give me any input on how we can be more efficient. Again, unplugem@gmail.com.
Thank you, everybody. You heard the call out there, so please contact Unplugem if you have any skills, resources, if you've ever done any type of fulfillment at all. You know how that can be if somebody's contributed to something. So you have some ideas. If there's somebody who's been through this, I've looked at people on YouTube who've done this for fulfillment, and it looks like they had to go through a learning curve. And I wish I could help you unplug them. I never sold anything or distributed anything online, but anything I find out, I'll shoot it your way. But please, if there's anybody who already knows how to do this, that could be your contribution to helping unplug them. So I'm sure they really appreciate that. Thank you, Brother Theo. Thank you so much. And I'll be talking to you again soon. And I hope we get that video up soon so we can all watch it. And any way I can help at all with that, just let me know. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to Escaping the Maze with my guest, Theodore Jackson. This is Roberta Ripley. Find me on iTunes under escapingthemaze.com. Also find me on Stitcher under the same name. And you can go to my website, www.escapingthemaze.com. And if you want to contact me, I am at escapingthemaze@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone, and be blessed.